Welcome to the morning sports briefing on New Zealand Sport Radio.
Hello and welcome to the morning sports briefing on August the 30th, Sunday, August. Hope you're all having a wonderful weekend, everybody. In the news today, we have the final of the A-League this evening. More rain in England. The Warriors produced their best performance of the season. The Tars see off the Rebels. The NBA is set to resume today. We have three golfers in action in the LPGA, the PGA, and the European Tour. We have updates on Formula One and the Supercars. Oh, dear me. So the America's Cup is asking for volunteers. The Australian national netball team get themselves a new coach. And the Tour de France and La Course have also, the course has happened, and also the Tour de France has started as well. So a morning full of sport. So just a reminder that the league final will kick off this evening at 8:30 p.m. between Sydney FC and Melbourne City FC, the first and second two teams in the table. Finding that out, so it should be a cracking game over in the A-League. Moving on to the cricket then, and the first 2020 match had to be abandoned due to rain between England and Pakistan. The second one of those will take place on Sunday. England reached 131, as I mentioned yesterday to you, but didn't manage to bat out their full 20 overs before that was called off. And now I'm going to hand you over to Stephen, who's going to take us through our birthdays this morning.
That was a very quick transfer this morning, Paul. Good morning, everybody tuning into New Zealand Sport Radio. Handed over the baton very, very quickly. Now, we just have the two birthdays today, but these two sports people are absolute legends. And now, first this morning is Barbara Ann Kendall, CNZM MBE, born this day, the 30th of August 1967, is a former board sailor. She competed at 5 Summer Olympics and won gold, silver, and bronze medals. She won a gold at the 1992 Summer Olympics in Barcelona, a silver medal in Atlanta, Georgia, and a bronze medal in Sydney. Kendall finished 5th at the 2004 Games in Athens and 6th at the 2008 Games in Beijing. She was the first, and as of 2008, only woman from New Zealand to compete at 5 Olympic Games. In 1990, Kendall was awarded the 1990 Commemoration Medal, and in the 1993 New Year's Honours, she was appointed a member of the Order of the British Empire for services to board sailing. In the 2019 New Year's Honours, she was made a companion of the New Zealand Order of Merit for services to her sport. Absolute royalty when it comes to board sailing, and probably our greatest ever. Moving right along, Alexander John Grizz Wiley, MBE, born this day, the 30th of August 1944, is a New Zealand Rugby Union former player and coach. Wiley began his first cast career with Canterbury in 1964 and played 210 matches for his province. Wow. Until 1979, serving as the captain over 100 occasions. So he was involved in tour matches, Ranfurly Shield. He was part of the Canterbury team that lifted the Ranfurly Shield in 1969 from Hawke's Bay, and then in 1972 from Auckland, as well as captaining his province to international wins over England, Scotland, and Ireland. Wiley finally became an All Black in 1970 when he was selected to tour South Africa, and he played in the second and third tests. In the next 3 years, he played 40 matches for New Zealand, including 11 tests, and was a captain on 3 occasions, although he was discarded as an All Black after 1973. Wiley remained a prominent player for Canterbury up until 1979. Wow, that's a 15-year career for Alex Wiley. In the 1986 New Year's Honours list, he was appointed to the New Zealand Order of Merit of the British Empire, and that was for services to rugby. Let's not also forget that he was also part of an assistant coaching team that won the first ever Rugby World Cup, but he was also the head coach of the 1991 All Black rugby team that probably missed the mark when they played over in Britain. And that's our birthdays today. Paul, that was quite a summary for two great New Zealanders.
Yes, quality over quantity this morning for our birthday. So absolutely, Stephen. Where are you now? Waratahs beats the Rebels 38-32 to give themselves hope of making it into the finals series. That means now that's their last game of the regular season. They have a 4-point lead over the Rebels. The Rebels need to pick up a bonus point win when they play the Force next weekend. The Brumbies and the Reds are already guaranteed to get into the finals places. And they will meet in that final regular season game next weekend, which will possibly be a preview of the actual final itself. Over in the Guinness Pro 14, and the Dragons have been beaten by the Scarlets 20-41, and currently Ulster are playing Leinster. That's live now. Leinster leading that one 13-0 away from home. Moving on then to the motorsport, and over in Formula One, Hamilton has taken pole position for the Belgium Grand Prix with his teammate Bottas in second place on the grid. In supercars, Jamie Whincup won the opening race of the Townsville Super Sprint. Scott McLaughlin had a rare qualifying nightmare, starting from 16th on the grid, but made it up to finish 7th in that one. So made up a lot of ground, but not enough for Jamie Whincup. Won that one. I'm going to hand you back to Stephen now, who's going to take us through our NRL update with the sport that is on giving.
Thank you, Paul. Well, there'll be a group of supporters that'll be very, very pleased this morning, and that's Warriors supporter, because they come up with their best win of the season. The Sharks too strong for the Cowboys to keep their playoff hopes alive, and the Panthers go to a 7 on the bounce against the West Tigers. But we start with the Warriors this morning. The Warriors have repaid their faithful and also the people of Tamworth at Scully Park with their best performance of the season, beating the Newcastle Knights by 36 points to 6 after leading by 8 points to 6 at half time. A double by skipper Roger Tuivasa-Sheck in the 50th and 73rd minute, along with Adam Pompey, who scored a double in the 6th and the 60th minute, propelled the Warriors into their best performance of the season. Further tries were scored by Jazz Tavanga and in the 77th minute, capping off the win, and also George Jennings, who scored in the 69th minute for the New Zealand Warriors. So a 6 tries to 1 victory, and that's repaying their faithful up there in Tamworth, remembering they isolated themselves when they headed over to start the NRL for 14 days, so almost like their second home for the Warriors. So a good victory, which pushes them into 9th place, just outside that 8th, but they are 2 wins in arrear to make that top 8, so they've got to keep on winning with 4 rounds to go. In our second game of the day, the Sharks proved too strong for the Cowboys, winning 28 points to 12 after they led by 16 points to 6 in a game played at Nestor Jubilee Stadium in Sydney yesterday. The Sharks racked up 5 tries to 2 in total, but it was the Cowboys who actually started the game in the best possible way, scoring after 4 minutes to get an early lead over the Sharks by 6 points to 0. Their try scorer Kyle Fent, but wouldn't be until the 77th minute that Fent went over for his second try. But unfortunately for the Cowboys, that was just a consolation try. The rest of the points coming from the Sharks by way of Britain, the Korasioni Katoa, Siosifa It's Taya Kai, Braden Hamlin Ulele, and Connor Tracy scoring all the points, tries for the Sharks. The rest of the points coming by way of boot by Brendan Tyndall, who's kicked 5 goals. So that final score again, the Cronulla Sharks 28, the North Queensland Cowboys 6, excuse me. And in our final game last evening, well, the Panthers, they are just on fire at the moment because they recorded either their 7th or 8th straight win in a row. I'd have to just check on that, Paul, my apologies. But they beat the Tigers by 30 points to 6. In total, they were leading by 14 points to 6 at halftime. That victory was also, that game was played at home at Panthers Stadium, so 5 tries to 1 victory. The only points for West Tigers scored by David Nofaloma after 8 minutes. In fact, the West Tigers opening the scoring. David Nofaloma scoring the try converted by Moses Bai, but that would be the last points the West Tigers would score on the afternoon, with the Panthers scoring tries in the first half to Jerome Luai and Liam Martin, and the rest of the points coming via way of conversions from Nathan Cleary, who's having a great season with 2 conversions, a penalty in the second half. We then saw tries to Brian Toa, and we saw 2 late tries to Stephen Crichton, who's been in great form, the winger, and Josh Mansour, the other winger, so getting a lot of ball out wide, and the rest of the points coming from Nathan Cleary. So that final score again, the Penrith Panthers 30, West Tigers 6. As we look at the table, the Panthers this year, only with the 1 loss, incredible, played 16, won 14, drawn 1, lost 1. So they are the team to beat. The Storm sitting in second place as we sort of look at the rest of the table, remembering the Sharks sitting in 8th place on 18 points. But we'll have a good look at that table tomorrow morning, Paul, and just a reminder also to watch the standoff on Wednesday night with Brad and Sanjay. They'll update you with all the league news. Now heading up to the other side of the world, to the Betfred Super League overnight, in a game played overnight. Wigan were too strong for Castleford. Well, not too strong, but a comfortable enough win by 30 points to 22. Wigan 32, Castle 22. And with about 15 minutes to go, it's the Leeds Rhinos leading Salford by 26 points to 12. And that's with about 15 minutes to go, although I will update that score again for you shortly. In fact, Leeds have pushed it out to 38 points to 12, and that's with 12 minutes to go. And that's all our league news today. I'm exit stage left. I am out of here. I'll see you tomorrow morning with more league news and birthdays.
Have a great weekend or Sunday, Stephen. And yes, Warriors fans, your hopes live on, folks. Great result yesterday for them. Moving on then into the NBA, and the NBA will resume today at 7:30 a.m. New Zealand time with the Magic versus the Bucks, followed up by the Thunder versus the Rockets, Steve Adams' team, at 10:30. And finally, we'll have the Trailblazers versus the Lakers at 1 p.m. today. The NBA came out with a statement saying that all parties agreed to resume play off games this Saturday, as long as the following commitments were enacted. The NBA and its players have agreed to immediately establish a social justice coalition with representative player code governors. Secondly, in every city where the league franchise owns and controls the arena property, they are going to set those up as voting, or safe in-person voting places for the community. Particularly communities vulnerable to COVID. And finally, the league will work with players and network partners to create and include advertising spots in each NBA playoff game dedicated to the promotion of greater civic engagement at national and local elections, and raising awareness around voter access and opportunity. So yes, interesting that the civic engagement and responsibility that approach that the NBA and the NBA players are going to be taking going forwards. Moving on then to the golf, and in the Walmart NW Arkansas Championship, Lydia Ko is having a tough one. This one after Recently, Lydia Kozin tied 105th after round one. She hasn't teed off yet in the second round. That second round is active, or is live right now. Over in the BMW Championship, Danny Lee is also having a soft. He's down in tied 46th. And again, round three is active. He was on the course the last time I looked. And finally, in the UK Championship on the European Tour, Ryan Fox is having a good tournament. He was as high as tied fourth, but has slipped back to tied 11th after the third round there. So Ryan Fox having a good tournament over on the European Tour this weekend. Moving on then to sailing and in the America's Cup. They're looking for around 1,000 people to the extra mile to join up as volunteers for the America's Cup. Auckland Tourism Events and Economic Development has started the hunt for 500 city skippers and 500 cup crew to help the city host all the events around the America's Cup. So if you'd like to volunteer and get involved, then check that out. Over in netball, and Stacey Marikovic has been named as the new coach of Australia's national netball team. She succeeds Lisa Alexander, who was in charge of the national side for nearly a decade until earlier this year.
You're listening to the morning sports briefing on New Zealand Sport Radio.
Moving on then to cycling, and in La Course, which is the one-day event, a one-day women's cycling event organised by the Tour de France. Lizzie Deignan won that in a sprint. Mariana Vos at the end of that race. New Zealand had two people involved. Michaela Harvey finished 12th in the second group on the road, coming first, or she led her team home. Equipe Paul Carr, and Naomi Fisher-Black was back in 32nd, also racing for that same team. In the Tour de France, the opening stage has also happened. Alexandra Kristoff timed his sprint to win that stage in Nice, and he will be the yellow jersey holder. As he says, it's just for one day, as the mountains today will prove too much for him, and he'll lose the yellow jersey on the second day. But he gets to be yellow jersey holder just for one day. So congratulations, Alexander Kristoff there. There are three New Zealand riders taking part in the Tour de France this year. Jonathan at 31st, and with Samuel Booley will be riding. Both of those two will be riding for Mitchelton Scott, and George Bennett finished down in 166th place for riding for Team Jumbo Visma. You got to remember that all of those three riders will be riding in support of their team leaders, and so will not be able to chase personal ambitions, so they won't mind coming down further in the pack there. You have now started the day the best way, up to speed with all of the important sports news. Don't forget that you can listen to us on the go. Just check out New Zealand Sports Radio on iHeartRadio, Spotify, iTunes, podcasts there. And don't forget, you can join us this evening at 8 p.m. for the Super Rugby AU Round 9 review. We'll be reviewing both those games between the Brumbies and the Force, and also the Waratahs and the Rebels at 8 p.m. Have a fantastic Sunday, folks, and see you all next time.